is set in Russia in the year 2140, where ladies have assumed control over the planet and transformed it into ultra-current culture. They presently not live in packed urban communities, however in the open country, where each family claims an estate. In fact, the innovation is present day to such an extent that an artificial intelligence servant deals with everything. They measure their proprietors' temperature, cook nourishment for them, play shows as per their mindset, and even plan new garments for them. Since men are at this point not the predominant species, things like disdain, viciousness and wars have been destroyed, and the typical future of ladies has gone up to 150. The hero of the film is Lisa, a 50-year elderly person who fills in as a set of experiences educator at a nearby school. One morning, as she watches the news, a lady is seen fighting about a consuming issue. She believes all ladies should reserve the option to imitate normally with men and not by manual semen injection. Lisa basically laughs at the news and prepares for her day. Sooner or later, she heads towards work, and we are given a concise outline of the general public, which is vigorously dependent on innovation, generosity, and discipline. Food slows down are available close to the streets, from which ladies can appreciate free feasts. Video calling should be possible with the snap of a finger, and there are fines for modest offenses like placing the trash in some unacceptable garbage bin. The punishment for such offenses is the allowance of social places, which is likewise considered as cash in this world. Additionally, assuming somebody is respectful and takes care of their business competently, they are given free friendly focuses. Soon after, Lisa shows up at her work environment, which is a modern transport lodging a couple of understudies. Burning through no time, she begins the class with a video show which discusses the historical backdrop of humanity. It uncovers that starting from the commencement of humankind, men have overwhelmed society. Be that as it may, all it brought was disdain and viciousness. Many years passed by, however, nothing different. In fact, the world was diving into more profound issues like an unnatural weather change, the ozone layer exhaustion, etc. Then, in the year 2030, a lethal struggle between the US and North Korea made a huge difference. A few researchers in Pyongyang fostered an infection to obliterate every one of the men in the US military. Nonetheless, the infection immediately spread to different regions of the planet and annihilated the vast majority of the male populace. As the video proceeds, it shows that after the ladies dominated, they gradually began turning around the harms done by men. An unnatural weather change started to diminish, contamination levels diminished, creatures began duplicating in number, and in general, the earth began improving as a spot to live in. Finally, the video specifies that the introduction of young men, for example primates, has become very uncommon, and the people who grow up are moved in a run-down area of the city where innovation is as yet crude. Here, we get to realize that the male populace is viewed like primates, they have little knowledge, are foul, and are consistently after two things: intercourse and brutality. When the show is finished, Lisa takes the young ladies to the edge of the province, from where they can see where men live. After the fall of men, the urban communities have been transformed into ghettos. Following this, we are taken to a close-by ghetto, which is the home of a gathering of primates. With extremely restricted utilization of innovation and decorums, their lives are exceptionally straightforward. We might in fact see a few females there, most likely a few radicals who couldn't adjust to the modern culture. Among the men carries on with a typical-looking person named Jera, who is a virgin. All he needs is to get laid, and yet, he is exceptionally useful and accommodating of others. There is likewise a manly savage named Noble, who goes about as the head of the ghetto. He is tired of the matriarchal society and needs to start an uprising. In one of his addresses, he specifies the long-term history of the ghettos. Quite a few years prior, after ladies assumed control over the world, men were treated as creatures and, surprisingly, utilized as domesticated animals. Be that as it may, at some point, aristocrats' courageous granddad got away from their general public and came to the city, where he began building the ghettos by scratch. He even carried a few ladies with him to duplicate. As everybody pays attention to the discourse with incredible interest, Lisa shows up there with her understudies. It just so happens, she has welcomed them on a field outing to see the primates, or in different terms, to see a zoo. True to form, the men are incensed to see themselves being dealt with like creatures. Inevitably, when Lisa and an understudy named Maria arrive at a confined region, Jera approaches them and attempts to conceal them. Seemingly out of the blue, he additionally out of nowhere kisses Lisa. Shocked, she rapidly blows a whistle and deorients Jera, yet additionally winds up drawing in the consideration of different men who show up at the scene and capture the young ladies. Soon after, Noble sorts out a slapping rivalry. The person who wins can reproduce with the ladies. Worried about their prosperity, Jera chooses to take part, yet regrettably, he is set in opposition to a monster. Luckily, when the Goliath swings his hand viciously, Jera ducks down, making the close-by aristocrat get taken out. Accepting this as the ideal open door, the ladies escape to their bus, while Jera hurries to his granddad's home. In the following scene, a bus transport stops at a customary designated spot to get a few batteries. After it begins moving once more, shockingly, Jera emerges from one of the battery barrels. This frightens the van proprietor, Julius, who is likewise a male. Incidentally, Julius is a seed guardian whose main errand is to deliver semen and impregnate ladies. Seed attendants are the main guys who are given the honors and regard as their female partners. Shockingly, Julius, who has never had a companion outside work, finds Jera fascinating and allows him to remain. The two talk for some time, and Julius even beverages the primate's exceptional liquor called home brew. Tragically for him, he becomes so inebriated that he winds up leaping out of the moving transport. Presently, with Noble's men high on his tail, Jera thinks about an arrangement. He puts on Julius's extra outfit and professes to be the new seed guardian. Some time later, the bus arrives at a state named Two Slopes, and an undetectable hindrance opens up to give the seed guardian access. Apprehensively, Jera gets down, and a wonderful lady on a bike provides him with a visit through the city. En route, a few ladies welcome him with fervor. Lisa is additionally among the group, however she doesn't see Jera. Around evening time, Jera makes a vow by gnawing the heavenly apple before live television, promising to imitate solid and savvy children. Then, he is taken to his chamber to rest, yet being a virgin, Jera declares that he needs to begin working immediately. Thus, a specialist accompanies him inside the proliferation chamber, where a moderately aged corpulent lady named Berta invites Jera, unfortunately. After this, he is told to be situated, and a line is associated with his mahood, what starts draining it bountifully. From the outset, Jera wonders whether or not to proceed with the cycle, however soon, he begins having dreams of Lisa, lastly quiets down. Shockingly, then again, Lisa has additionally not had the option to shake Jera off of her psyche and continues to contemplate him constantly. The following morning, Jera is acquainted with the proliferation base where seed guardians like him are dealt with by gorgeous ladies. The entire day, the young men are spoiled, took care of with heavenly dishes, and rubbed to keep them fit and blissful. Overpowered with every one of the young ladies around him, Jera gets stimulated and heads to the restroom to play out a hand help. Be that as it may, when he does as such, an alert goes off in the base. It just so happens, hand alleviation is precluded in the Two Slopes settlement. To exacerbate the situation, contemplating intercourse is likewise unlawful, and the person who has such sentiments is called homosapien sexual. Somewhere else, Lisa and her family, which comprises of her mom, Polina, and grandma, Anya, are at the nearby court. It just so happens, the understudy from prior, Maria, let the specialists know that she was momentarily caught by the primates. Subsequently, she, alongside Lisa, are attempted at the court to check, assuming they are blameworthy. Anxious, Lisa opens dependent upon her closest companion, Tanya, that she was kissed by a primate, yet the last option advises her to be sure as nobody will be familiar with it. Before long, the preliminary starts and Maria's mother, Vivian, who is a high-positioning councilwoman in the province, attempts to put all the fault on Lisa. Nonetheless, Lisa doesn't keep silent and uncovers that they went to the ghettos on Maria's solicitation. She even proceeds to show video film from her computer-based intelligence, which confirms the cases. With this, Lisa is going to defend herself, however all of a sudden, her malevolent closest companion, Tanya, rodents her out and lets everybody know that she was kissed by a primate. Hearing this, everybody is stunned, and the appointed authority rebuffs Lisa with 80 hours of local area administration, while Tanya is compensated 20 social focuses for her trustworthiness. Somewhere else, Julius some way or another coincidentally finds the ghettos, where he is moved toward by Jera's granddad. The elderly person chooses to take care of him, however provided that he stays quiet about his character. Having no way out, Jera concurs. Afterward, he is taken to Nobleman, who is hanging out at the nearby bar. Julius attempts to get off to a promising start, however Noble makes a joke out of him by turning his finger. That very day, Julius is given a hairstyle to make him look more satisfactory. Before long, a woman, who is plainly beguiled by his attractive features, approaches him to treat his finger. Tragically, Noble notification this and gets jealous. He then arranges one of his protectors, the Goliath, to go up against the untouchable and deal with him. Without a second thought, the Goliath obliges, and he moves Julius to a slap battle. Afterward, the arrangements for the battle are made, and the whole local area has assembled to observe the occasion. Before long, the battle starts and the Goliath goes first. He hits Julius energetically and brings him down, yet amazingly, the last option gets right back up. He then releases a deadly right hand, which thumps the monster cold. Then again, Berta takes all the Seed Guardians out for a walk. During the excursion, Jera becomes weary of the relative multitude of decides that they need to follow rigorously. For example, if a Seed Guardian needs to flatulate, he needs to ask consent and enter a fart container to carry out the thing. Sooner or later, the gathering shows up at a sculpture, which gives off an impression of being of Greta Thunberg. Turns out that she is viewed as a goddess in this land. While everybody is caught up with supplicating, Jera accumulates a portion of his partners and urges them to have a good time. 3 of the folks concur, and together, they adventure off to the close-by ocean to get fish. There, the folks notice that Jera has unshaved legs, something which is disallowed inside 2 slopes. They likewise figure out that he has a lighter, which is viewed as a perilous weapon. Nonetheless, rather than being dubious, the folks like Jera's insubordinate nature and think of him as a good example. With this, the gathering gets some fish and partakes at night until a close-by alarm begins blasting and ruins their disguise. Consequently, they are condemned to an entire day's visit through the instruction community. The following morning, as Jera is having one of his ordinary back rubs, his overseer is abruptly supplanted, and the upgraded one is uncovered to be, in all honesty, Lisa. It just so happens, she was shipped off serve in the multiplication base as a discipline. Both Jera and Lisa are stunned to see one another, yet regardless, they say nothing. Afterward, the 4 seed managers who recently disregarded the local area's conventions are brought to the instruction community. There, they are programmed with a few introductions, which confirm that ladies are the unrivaled race and that men ought to be overwhelmed. The introductions additionally underwrite other unlawful adages of the general public like having sex or in any event, mulling over everything. During the visit, Lisa and her grandma, Anya, are additionally present there. The 2 of them watch Jera from a good ways and giggle at his ungainliness. Be that as it may, Anya, who is a piece outdated and disdains the most recent standards, thinks that he is charming. She likewise advises her granddaughter to stay quiet about his personality. At night, after the gathering arrives at home, Jera accumulates his kindred Seed Guardians and causes them to comprehend that in spite of what they realize today, it is totally ordinary to have suggestive cravings. This irritates up part of the gang such a lot of that he defies Lisa and requests that she strip down. However, before things go crazy, Jera intercedes and sends the person away, subsequently saving Lisa for the subsequent time. Be that as it may, rather than saying thanks to him, Lisa allows him 30 minutes to take off, or probably she will ruin his disguise to the specialists. Tragically, Noble notification this and gets jealous. He then arranges one of his protectors, the Goliath, to go up against the untouchable and deal with him. Without a second thought, the Goliath obliges, and he moves Julius to a slap battle. Afterward, the arrangements for the battle are made, and the whole local area has assembled to observe the occasion. Before long, the battle starts and the Goliath goes first. He hits Julius energetically and brings him down, yet amazingly, the last option gets right back up. He then releases a deadly right hand, which thumps the monster cold. Then again, Berta takes all the Seed Guardians out for a walk. During the excursion, Jera becomes weary of the relative multitude of decides that they need to follow rigorously. For example, if a Seed Guardian needs to flatulate, he needs to ask consent and enter a fart container to carry out the thing. Sooner or later, the gathering shows up at a sculpture, which gives off an impression of being of Greta Thunberg. Turns out that she is viewed as a goddess in this land. While everybody is caught up with supplicating, Jera accumulates a portion of his partners and urges them to have a good time. 3 of the folks concur, and together, they adventure off to the close-by ocean to get fish. There, the folks notice that Jera has unshaved legs, something which is disallowed inside 2 slopes. They likewise figure out that he has a lighter, which is viewed as a perilous weapon. Nonetheless, rather than being dubious, the folks like Jera's insubordinate nature and think of him as a good example. With this, the gathering gets some fish and partakes at night until a close-by alarm begins blasting and ruins their disguise. Consequently, they are condemned to an entire day's visit through the instruction community. The following morning, as Jera is having one of his ordinary back rubs, his overseer is abruptly supplanted, and the upgraded one is uncovered to be, in all honesty, Lisa. It just so happens, she was shipped off serve in the multiplication base as a discipline. Both Jara and Lisa are stunned to see one another, yet regardless, they say nothing. Afterward, the 4 seed managers who recently disregarded the local area's conventions are brought to the instruction community. There, they are programmed with a few introductions, which confirm that ladies are the unrivaled race and that men ought to be overwhelmed. The introductions additionally underwrite other unlawful adages of the general public, like having sex or, in any event, mulling over everything. During the visit, Lisa and her grandma, Anya, are additionally present there. The two of them watch Jara from a good ways and giggle at his ungainliness. Be that as it may, Anya, who is a piece outdated and disdains the most recent standards, thinks that he is charming. She likewise advises her granddaughter to stay quiet about his personality. At night, after the gathering arrives at home, Jara accumulates his kindred seed guardians and causes them to comprehend that in spite of what they realize today, it is totally ordinary to have suggestive cravings. This irritates up part of the gang such a lot of that he defies Lisa and requests that she strip down. However, before things go crazy, Jara intercedes and sends the person away, subsequently saving Lisa for the subsequent time. Be that as it may, rather than saying thanks to him, Lisa allows him 30 minutes to take off, or probably she will ruin his disguise to the specialists. In the interim at the ghettos, Julius has begun acquiring somewhat of a fan following. Irritated that an outcast is attempting to usurp his power, Noble orders a portion of his men, including his right-hand man, Rodent, to polish Julius off. Sticking to the script, the gathering, alongside Julius, heads to a neglected retail chain on the affection of rummaging a few supplies. Shockingly, Julius is awesome at the work and he figures out how to separate some significant food things. The gathering is additionally dazzled when Julius figures out how to, without any help, foil a faux bunch named the Squirrels, who accept that liquor is the root to all insidious. Thus, they choose to save his life and return him to the ghettos. Then again, it is uncovered that the councilwoman, Vivian, isn't a holy person, all things considered. She is seen having a close second with the head of the ghettos, aristocrat. The next morning, Vivian analyzes photos of the new cluster of seat attendants and in the end figures out that the genuine Julius is missing. From Noble's data during their experience the previous evening, she likewise discovers that the fraud is a primate that has gotten away from the ghettos. Burning through no time, she arranges her aide to shout out a crisis advance notice all through the state. In the interim, a terrified Jara attempts to escape the spot, however he is come by the imperceptible obstruction. Left with no decision, he clandestinely sneaks back inside the settlement. As the crisis cautions go off, he sees Lisa and begs her for help. True to form, Lisa believes nothing should do with him, yet when Jara helps her to remember the occasions where he acted the hero, she concurs. Before long, cops begin amassing the spot, so Lisa escapes with Jara. Tragically, while they are taking off, her ex-closest companion, Tanya, gets them in the demonstration. Back at the ghettos, while Noble shows up at the bar to have a beverage, he is shocked to see Julius alive. He irately asks his men about for what valid reason they didn't execute him, to which his right-hand man, Rodent, answers that Julius is a benevolent man who saved their lives. As the warm-to-conflict goes on, Julius ventures forward and requests a vote-based system. He expresses that every one of the inhabitants of the spot merit equivalent open door and that their voices ought to issue. Individuals inside the bar likewise begin reciting for him, and thus, left without any choices, Nobleman chooses to lead a cordial gathering. The two later meet in Nobleman's own quarters and discuss their perspectives. Julius maintains that individuals should have a choice, while Nobleman needs to mistreat them for eternity. Yet, finally, the two in the end settle for a political race, the champ of which will be the head of the ghettos. After Julius leaves, a stressed Noble calls Rodent to his room and orders him to stand up in the political decision too. That's what he trusts, assuming 3 men contend, the votes will be partitioned, and Julius will have a lesser possibility winning. Around evening time, the democratic service is started, and every one of the inhabitants of the ghettos cast their votes individually. At the point when the outcomes are proclaimed, Nobleman gets just a solitary vote. However, shockingly, Rodent wins the political race with 18 votes, contrasted with Julius's 16. It would appear the vast majority of individuals actually have no faith in the last option, taking into account the way that he is an outcast. Somewhere else, with no place to go, Lisa carries Jara to her home, where her grandma, Anya, attempts to consider a method for assisting him with getting away. Sadly, before she can think of an arrangement, Vivian's colleague shows up at the way to review. Prior to giving her access, Anya rapidly locks Jara, Lisa, and furthermore a pet feline inside the wardrobe. Here, it is uncovered that keeping creatures in imprisonment or in any event, having them as pets is unlawful in 2 slopes. Before long, Vivian's associate goes into the house and starts looking for the want-away crooks. She uncovers that Tanya saw the primate Aka Jera taking off with Lisa. She then, at that point, presses Anya to surrender the crooks, however the last option holds firm and lies that she hasn't seen them. Not long after, the 8 is going to leave yet all at once, the feline sniffles inside the storeroom, thus ruining their disguise. Be that as it may, before she can illuminate Vivian about it, Anya smacks her in the head and takes her out. Presently, with time expiring, Anya draws out a cruiser and advises Jera to take it, as a shot going over the speed of 80 km each hour can enter the imperceptible hindrance. She likewise arranges Lisa to take off from him, as she, as well, has turned into a needed criminal in the province. Obliging to the request, the two set off on their excursion, and Jera speeds up the cruiser to surpass the 80 km/h mark. Luckily, the arrangement works, and the two can enter the undetectable obstruction. The effect deteriorates the cruiser and destroys their garments, yet beneficially, they have carried some additional dresses alongside them now. With no place to go, Lisa is compelled to follow Jera. Around evening time, the two get a fire going and rest together. The following morning, Jera gets a squirrel and prepares it as breakfast. In any case, unfortunately, Lisa, who has carried on with for her entire life eating vegetables and bushes, is panicked by seeing a cooked creature. The episode closes as Lisa shouts out so anyone might hear, drawing in the consideration of a few close-by men.